The story follows a badass protagonist, codenamed Cian, who was raised and rigorously trained in the ominous dead mansion by a mysterious, alluring nun and a haughty pastor. Cian was meant to be dispatched to Japan for his missions, but due to a fateful error, he was sent to Korea instead. Despite being the most skilled and efficient assassin, outclassing all other trainees, Cian now leads a seemingly normal life in Korea. However, the calm is about to shatter, and his life is about to take a turn for the extraordinary. The story begins with the appearance of a wealthy, grotesque man, puffing on a cigar. A small girl sobbed softly as a strikingly beautiful nun gently comforted her. The man, his voice gravelly and commanding, announced that he would be taking on the role of a father, selecting a boy from the group of children. These weren't ordinary children. They were raised and trained from a young age to become assassins. As soon as the man left the mansion, the atmosphere shifted. The nun's soothing demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold, steely resolve. The pretense dropped, and she commanded the children to prepare for training. Instantly, the children's eyes sharpened, and they reached for their weapons, moving with the precision of trained killers. The nun approached Ellie, the little girl who had been crying moments before. With a stern, no-nonsense tone, she told Ellie that her parents might despise her because her nose always ran when she cried. "Be careful next time," the nun warned, her words heavy with unspoken lessons. Ellie absorbed the harsh advice, realizing everything. Meanwhile, from a distance, the snobbish pastor observed the scene through a window, a twisted smile of amusement playing on his lips. He believed the children were far from ordinary. They were cultivated weapons, expensive and meticulously nurtured from childhood to serve a purpose. They weren't trained in any ordinary church. This was a place of brutal discipline, led by a figure with a body chiseled from muscle. The children were beaten, hardened, and shaped into tools of death. A question comes up: why are they being trained, and what will they be used for? He replied to it and told that the children are computers, whose futures were determined by the buyers, their so-called parents. Then the scene comes up from the same fat, wealthy man and his purchased son from earlier. He shows the kid the photo and tells him that it is the target of his. These children are menace, and so they were brainwashed, and 3 absolute rule was imprinted into them. They are to follow this rule absolutely. They were shown video where the pastor explains that the principles are designed to control the children's. And it's crucial to remember the principle. We go back to the boy who was examining the target. From rear mirror, he could see that the car was following them. Old Pig didn't listen to him and told us to focus in the photo. The first rule of the 3 absolute rule was that the parent's words are the absolute, so he follows his parent word. The car stroked the man's car, and it crashes. Old Piggy died, but the kid survives without any reaction. The second rule was that they can't use their power without the command from their parents. The boy finds that his father is dead, lying on critical condition. On the other hand, 2 assassins went out to check man was dead or not. They find the kid acting like real injured, screaming and crying in pain and asking for help. They tries to be not entirely ruthless, were unsure what to do. One of the 2 assassins coldly suggested eliminating the child to get rid of any potential threat. However, the child, seemingly vulnerable, recalled the third and final absolute principle ingrained in them. If the life of a parent is at risk, all previous rules can be disregarded, and one may act independently. With this in mind, the child decided to take matters into their own hands, prepared to defend against any danger, even if it meant going against everything they had been taught. By remembering those words, he stabbed the assassin in his neck with his weapon, and he took the gun from him and sued the another assassin from there. The pastor asks, "Aren't they such good children?" He acts like a real pastor with a soothing voice, looking innocent and kind. But his smile reveals his ruthlessness, adorned with luxurious gems and golden dentures. He shows a pamphlet of the children and asks the readers again, "What do you think? Would you like to make a purchase?" The pastor remembers one child is their only blemish. This boy had the highest abilities among all the children and was truly leader. This voice, someone from the earlier, has disappeared. The posture was very fond of him, and he looked soured and gives a smuggy expression. Without his parents, The boy couldn't use his power and wouldn't draw any attention. The pastor assumed he was living as an ordinary child somewhere, maybe even dead, as this happened years ago. And there he was, walking and acting like a normal student, when suddenly someone punched him in the gut. It turns out he was being bullied. The bully's name was Joseph, and he was tormenting our boy, Hyung-ho. Joseph didn't know how strong or weak Hyung-ho really was. Hyung-ho was pretending to be reckless, to seem weak, and wasn't fighting back. All the bullies were making fun of him, torturing him, beating him up. One of Joseph's crew, Cheyenne, pushed Joseph aside and stepped forward. He punched Hyung-ho and sneered, asking him how much his punch was worth. Hyung-ho surprises everyone by telling them fuck off. Cheyenne looks out to other and calls out to Joseph, saying, "This guy must be malfunctioning." He knows deep down that he can take them all on and beat them easily. Joseph, taken aback, approaches him and questions why he's suddenly acting this way. This surprises Cheyenne even more. Joseph gets very close, then suddenly slaps Cheyenne hard, saying, "Don't act so cocky. Wasn't I already hitting him?" Cheyenne clenches his fist, trying to make excuses, claiming the slap was worth a solid 150,000 points. He's visibly scared of Joseph. However, Joseph just smirks and mocks him, telling Cheyenne he should go buy some cigarettes later. Then, Joseph walks away with his so-called friends. As the group leaves, Cheyenne swears under his breath that he'll definitely get back at Joseph next time. Yet, he can't help but admit that Joseph is cool, especially when he speaks with an American accent. On the other hand, Hyung-ho looks at Cheyenne and sees how pathetic he is, knowing he could easily beat him up out of anger and embarrassment. But Cheyenne, unable to accept the earlier humiliation, grabs Hyung-ho in a headlock, his expression full of anger. He tells Hyung-ho he's dead today for real. However, instead of fighting, they end up going to a restaurant where Hyung-ho treats Cheyenne to food. Cheyenne is out of money after running errands for Joseph's group, and he feels awkward about the situation. He starts to intimidate Hyung-ho, questioning if he thinks he's wasting money on Joseph's group. As they continue to eat, Cheyenne suddenly notices the name of the place, Hyung-ho's Snack Shop. Surprised by the coincidence, Cheyenne remarks on it. Hyung-ho then reveals that it's his mom's shop, and just as he finishes speaking, Hyung-ho's mother appears with a warm smile, serving them food. She's a sweet, hospitable old lady who mistakes Cheyenne for Hyung-ho's friend, offering them fish cakes on the house. With a calm demeanor, Cheyenne asks if Hyung-ho knew his mom owned the shop, understanding now why it's named after him. Hyung-ho silently confirms it, growing anxious as he realizes Cheyenne has discovered his connection to the shop, which he had managed to keep hidden until now. Cheyenne's face takes on a fiendish look, his voice laced with amusement as he says, "Is that so?" implying he knows more than he's letting on. Hyung-ho starts to worry, wondering what Cheyenne might do to his mother, and prepares to defend her by discreetly pulling out a pen. But then Cheyenne does something unexpected. He calls Hyung-ho's mom Annie, and instead of causing trouble, bows down and apologizes. He introduces himself as Hyung-ho's friend, Park Cheyenne, expressing regret for not meeting her sooner. With a smile, he admits he didn't realize it was their shop and finds it unique. Hyung-ho is left confused, dumbfounded by what he's hearing. His mother, on the other hand, is pleased by Cheyenne's words, mentioning that her son always tells her not to make their connection too obvious. She smiles warmly and comments that it's not good for her to work so hard, a sentiment that leaves Hyung-ho feeling both relieved and unsettled. Hyung-ho wasn't sure of Cheyenne's intentions, knowing he was a bully, but even Cheyenne seemed taken aback by what Hyung-ho's mother said. Quickly, Hyung-ho told his mom that they needed to leave right away, mentioning that their friends were waiting. With a bright smile, his kind mother began packing snacks for Hyung-ho and his friends, asking how many were waiting so she could prepare enough for all of them. Hyung-ho was surprised and tried to stop her, insisting she didn't need to do that. On the other hand, Cheyenne was delighted at the free snacks. The sweet old lady insisted it was no trouble, explaining that she didn't have many customers today. Cheyenne, still pleased, asked if she was sure about giving away so much food. The old lady reassured him, smiling warmly, and said, "My son's friends are like my children." Cheyenne agreed with her sentiment, But Hyung-ho was growing increasingly anxious, worried about his mother. Shine's face took on a sinister grin as he replied, "We'll enjoy our meal." Desperate, Hyung-ho pleaded with Shine not to tell Joseph or anyone else about their shop, asking him for a favor. Shine smiled and assured Hyung-ho he would handle it. He bid farewell to the sweet old lady, who even suggested he bring his friends next time. Reluctantly, Hyung-ho agreed, shocked at himself for doing so. After Cheyenne left, Hyung-ho and his mother had a conversation. Frustrated and anxious, Hyung-ho exclaimed, "I told you not to act like you know me. I told you." His mother, still smiling, was unaware of the danger looming over them, her kind actions having unintentionally complicated Hyung-ho's efforts to keep his identity and their connection a secret. "Why are you doing this?" Hyung-ho screamed, his voice filled with panic, eyes wide with fear. He couldn't understand why he was yelling at his mom, why she was apologizing. The sweet old lady only wanted him to be happy, overjoyed to see him with a friend for the first time. She apologized softly, saying she just wanted him to get along with his friends. Such a poor, sweet old lady, so apologetic to her son. But that wasn't what Hyung-ho wanted. He felt pathetic, disgusted with himself. A few days later, his worst fears came true. Despite Shine's promise, Joseph and his group showed up, bullying him in the classroom. Joseph harassed Hyung-ho relentlessly, even threatening him over the food. With an evil expression, he dampened a rag and shoved it onto Hyung-ho's face, sneering as he asked if he could get a refund. Joseph suggested they go to his mom instead, claiming he was also one of her son's friends. He continued mocking Hyung-ho, questioning why they were friends with a malevolent look towering over him. "We're friends, right? We should get along." "It was just a joke," Joseph said, before cruelly pouring all the food onto Hyung-ho's face. Hyung-ho was paralyzed, unsure of what to do. His fists clenched around the pan in his hand, the words of his mother echoing in his mind. She just wanted him to get along with his friends. In a moment of desperation and rage, Hyung-ho snapped. He lunged at Joseph, trying to stab him with the pan, aiming for his neck. Fear and despair contorted his face as he realized what he was doing. Joseph, furious and shocked, shouted, "What the hell are you trying to do, man?" At that moment, Shine arrived at the scene. The room was eerily silent, the tension thick in the air. 2 policemen were already there, surveying the damage. The window was shattered, and blood was smeared across the broken glass. On the floor, Hyung-ho's blood and eyeglasses lay scattered, a grim testament to the violence that had occurred. It was clear that Joseph had beaten Hyung-ho severely, likely throwing him out of the window in his rage. Hyung-ho had endured continuous beatings from Joseph for about 15 minutes, passing out from the pain only to regain consciousness and apologize each time. The violence persisted without anyone stepping in, until Hyung-ho, driven to his breaking point, took matters into his own hands. Joseph and his gang huddled together, discussing their next move. Joseph proposed a plan to frame one of their friends for what happened to Hyung-ho. Despite their fears and protests that they hadn't done anything, Joseph was adamant. He pointed out that a favorable juvenile law in Korea wouldn't apply to him, as he had been held back. He showed them a form, explaining that their friend would take the blame if they turned themselves in and claimed they had pushed Hyung-ho. One of Joseph's friends was visibly scared, worried about potential lawsuits. Joseph reassured him, noting that no one had been sued yet and suggesting there was a way around it. He emphasized their protection under the juvenile law, showing them a case full of money and offering each person 10 million won to participate. Finally, he revealed his plan to locate Hyung-ho's residence. Meanwhile, Hyung-ho's mother, the sweet old lady, was devastated. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled with the gravity of her son's situation. As night fell, Joseph's group made their way to Hyung-ho's place. They noticed that the elevator from the 5th floor wasn't coming down. Ignoring it, Joseph led the group to the stairs. When they reached the 5th floor, they discovered that a fire extinguisher was blocking the elevator door. As Joseph's group reached the stairs, they found Cheyenne waiting for them, clearly annoyed. "Why are you late?" Cheyenne demanded, revealing he had been there all along. Joseph was taken aback, confused as to why Cheyenne was there and why he hadn't been part of their plan. Cheyenne, standing with a firm stance, cut straight to the point with two questions. First, he asked, "How did you find out about Hyung-ho's snack shop?" It was supposed to be a secret. It quickly became apparent that Cheyenne hadn't leaked the information. Instead, he was part of Joseph's group. Joseph, slightly irritated, revealed his curiosity about why Cheyenne hadn't brought cigarettes, but instead brought a lot of food for the children. They followed Cheyenne and discovered Hyung-ho and his mother's hidden restaurant, a place they hadn't known about. They saw Hyung-ho arguing with his mother in front of the shop, which had inadvertently revealed their location. Cheyenne, feeling guilty, realized that their presence was due to him. He then carefully asked his second question, "What are you guys doing here?" Joseph, holding a metal pipe and speaking casually, responded, "We're here to see Hyung-ho's mom." It's perfect timing. He expressed his irritation, saying, "I've been annoyed with you pretending to bully him while actually helping him instead. You saved Hyung-ho and only lightly punched him to protect him." Cheyenne, furious and feeling deceived, readied his weapon to strike. However, he acted first, grabbing the fire extinguisher and using it to create a cloud of smoke, blinding everyone in the room. Joseph commanded his friends to seize Cheyenne, but Cheyenne hurled the fire extinguisher, knocking both Joseph and one of his gang members off balance. Cheyenne, proving stronger than anyone else present, quickly assessed the situation. While Joseph was distracted, Cheyenne attempted an attack, but Joseph blocked the blow. Cheyenne then focused on Joseph's feet, landing powerful strikes. Joseph screamed in agony as he felt his metatarsal bones break. Cheyenne, trained as an assassin since childhood, recognized the severity of the injury and knew Joseph wouldn't be walking anytime soon. In intense pain, Joseph demanded to know why Cheyenne was attacking him. Cheyenne's voice carried a mix of anger and revelation. He revealed a shocking twist. Hyung-ho was not the real main character of the series. Instead, Cheyenne was the lost boy, a trained assassin from childhood. Cheyenne shared the three principles that had been imprinted on him. Parents' words are absolute. Cheyenne declared this as he landed powerful punches on Joseph. Do not use your power without parental permission. Confusion spread among Joseph's friends as Cheyenne continued to deliver a brutal assault. If a parent's safety is threatened, ignore the first two principles to resolve the situation. Cheyenne referred to Hyung-ho's mom, whom he considered his own, recalling her words that Hyung-ho's friends were like her children. With a voice full of anger, Cheyenne accused Joseph of threatening his mom, unleashing relentless fury on him. Cheyenne beat Joseph mercilessly, showing no mercy. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, the nun informed the pastor of a surprising call from Korea. The pastor, intrigued, took the call. On the other end, a mysterious voice revealed, "We found the missing child, the lost legend of the dead mansion, codenamed Sean. He's in Korea." The revelation confirmed that Cheyenne, not Hyung-ho, was the original main character of the series, the true heir to the legacy of the Dead Mansion. Legend of Dead Mansion, codenamed Sean, he was the best work from trained children in weapon skills, undercover, and assassination. He was supposed to be sent to a Yakuza family of Japan, which was the top clients of Dead Mansion Kid, but due to mistaken delivery, Kid was sent to the Korea. Pastor was thinking that it had been 5 years, and maybe he was already dead by now. But with grin smile, he was happy to know about his survival. Pastor asked Sexy Nun to go find him no matter what need to be done. The sexy hot MILF number from before, her name was Rachel. She heeded his command. She prepared to take any measure necessary to bring him back to mansion. Dead Mansion trainer Rachel, with unknown responsibility and speciality. Pastor Leave ordered her to not harm him and leave weapon here as she going to aboard. Scene shifts. Man was apologizing and mentioned he is Joseph's father Kwan Byung. He promised the reparation for inflicting damage to her son. Hyung's mom replied, "Nothing matters now, and simple apologies can't change anything." With bold attitude, he moves from there. He told mother that she will not listen to his words as her intention is far from having negotiation, and he doesn't have time for this. Next, Bi Hangwoo was in his car. He remarks that his nose is stinging from dust, stench from her workplace. He ordered his men to tear down the shop and mark new building there. Then he asked, "What is the condition of that kid? And did he take care of it?" His driver replied, "Yes, Assistant O, he's taking care of it, and he should be done with it about now, and should be calling us." Then the scene shifts to the hospital, where Joseph was caring for his injuries that he sustained when fighting Cheyenne. He was cursing him and told his father that he was saying something about the three principles. His father asked if it was trending meme in these days. Then he looked towards the nurse, a sexy one. He told her she could give them a minute and leave them alone for a bit. The sexy nurse left the place. Then Joseph was about to talk to his father, but his father slapped him in the face. He told him, "Do you know what I'm most mad about? Whether you bullied a kid which led him to jump from this classroom, I don't care about that." He said to his son that if he has started something, then he should know how to finish it and handle it cleanly. The basic rule of the work is not to do the same thing twice, Joseph. He warned his son that he should take care of these things properly from next time. The scene shifts to where Cheyenne was being beaten by the adults. He fell to the ground, getting beaten by them. One of them looks like O. He put on his gloves and started to beat Cheyenne again. He beat him up, beat him up. He told him, "It's not easy like to the four kids of your age. When it comes to adults, it will not work the same way. You have crippled Master Half, and because of that, he is unable to move. Now he's in a state of inflammation, and you should repent." He put his leg on Cheyenne's hand and tried to break it, saying, "This is how adults make things right." Then they left. Cheyenne was mocking them, saying they could not break his bone. They thought it had been broken, but only his joints were dislocated. He quickly recovered his hand from it. It was very different from Rachel's punishments that he used to bear in the Dead Mansion. Aside from that, things have gotten troublesome now. He can't use his full strength without a command due to the three principles engraved in him. Well, this should be enough to calm things down, he thought. He took his bag and left. He thought that if something troublesome happened, he would get a new identity for himself. When he was about to leave, Hyung-ho's mother came. They met, and she asked, "It's you, Cheyenne, but why do you look like that?" Cheyenne was fully messy because of the beating. He greeted her and was taken to her home, where she gave him food. She told him, "Don't be so hurried. Eat a lot." Cheyenne took "eat a lot" as a command and started to eat. She told him he would choke, so drink some water as well. He quickly listened to that as a command and drank as well. He was full from eating, and she was happy to see Cheyenne like this. Cheyenne asked her if Hyung-ho was doing better. She told him Hyung-ho is fine and that the doctor said the surgery went fine. We just have to keep an eye on him, and he will overcome every hardship he is bearing right now. She cried a lot to see her child in such a state, knowing she couldn't do anything about it. She just wanted to destroy everything, like the pain in her heart. She wanted to tear apart the person who made him like this, who injured him, and tear them into pieces. Cheyenne was listening to her and thought this was his command. When she turned back toward Cheyenne, saying sorry he was not there, Cheyenne had already left. The menace was coming, and it felt like there was going to be a massacre now by our protagonist. The scene shifts towards a building. This was the building of Joseph's father. He was pleased and even commended his workers, saying they had worked hard, and his construction was at this phase because of their effort. There was a butler serving liquor to the bodyguards. When he was about to serve them the wine, he hit him with a wine bottle, practically slashing his face. The person was Cheyenne. Then another person came and asked what his deal was. Cheyenne beat them up as well, massaging their faces like something you could not even get in a spa. He put glass in his hand, but our protagonist kicked him and took a spoon in his hand, ready to show something. A few feet away, he threw the spoon like a shuriken. It struck the eyes of the bodyguards behind. The noise caused other bodyguards to become enraged. What was the noise about? They asked, and the lights were also turned off. Many of the bodyguards were already fallen on the ground. They knew something was happening. Joseph's father was in surprise and slight fear as well. The blonde-haired kid, our protagonist, was under the table, hiding. The words "the parents' command is absolute," a principle engraved in the children of the Dead Mansion, were roaming in the protagonist's head. He was killing them like some kind of killing master. He didn't even need a gun to kill them like that. He was able to kill them very easily with just a spoon in his hand. He remembered her words, "Tear everyone to pieces." He recalled Hyung-ho's mother's words. They were all fighting, but they could not win against the protagonist, who was highly skilled in combat. Suddenly, someone threw a knife at him. He dodged it, which caused another bodyguard to fall. It was the same person who was beating our protagonist before. He thought he had broken that arm of his, but this time he was going to break it for sure. As soon as he was ready in position, with brutal precision, without giving any slight moment to think, he directly launched his attack toward the bodyguard, catching his hand, and he beat him up. He demonstrated how to break a hand and then broke the bodyguard's hand. He looked toward Joseph's father, who aimed a gun at him. It was hard to aim from above. Shine mocked him. Joseph's father tells, "You think you're a pro? Then why don't you try?" He continued, "I heard that kids in Korea do these cruel things. Are you part of that crew?" "I don't know about that," the protagonist replied. "But if you were to ask what I'm affiliated with," Hyung-ho's mother. "Do you remember something old that the old lady said?" "Huh?" That chief kept giving a foul smell. Like, "I finally get it now. So, bitch hired you to kill me." "No. She told me to tear you into pieces." "What? What are you talking about?" Joseph's father exclaimed. The protagonist snatched the gun from him and beat him up. Joseph's father could not understand anything, and he kept getting beaten by the protagonist. The protagonist said, "The first principle, a parent's command is absolute." He beat that MF up. But as the protagonist was about to leave, Joseph's father said, "Efficiency is the most important thing when working. You can't do the same thing twice." "I knew it. You and that bitch. I should have taken care of it properly back then. Next time, I will kill you both." The protagonist picked up the gun from where it had fallen from Joseph's father's hand. "What nonsense are you spouting?" the protagonist said, and he stated the third principle. "If there is any slight danger to the parents, then you are to forget all the principles and act on your own." Then he shot the hanging light in the ceiling. It fell off towards Joseph's father. The protagonist left. Then the scene shifts to where Joseph was in the hospital. A nurse was serving him saline water. "Wow, this is cold." "It's really cold, isn't it? This is the first time someone in this hospital? I guess the guy that really hit you is good at fighting." "This is too much." Nurse was talking to him. "Oh yeah, man, she was doing some sexy stuff. Don't get horny, fellas." "Hey, earlier, what were you and your father talking about?" "The three principles? You mentioned something like that," she asked. "Hey, the color of the medicine is funny, you know," Joseph said to her. "Oh, you don't have to worry. You won't die. I only used half." She opened her mask, and as soon as she did, her face changed. She was Rachel, a sexy nun from the Dead Mansion. The Dead Mansion is a training facility, and my responsibility is to be an undercover agent of the Dead Mansion and also an interrogation expert. Sexy nun Rachel was at the scene of the carnage, where she could see lots of dead bodies lying around. She called the director, the pastor of the Dead Mansion, telling him that Cheyenne, codename Boy, had exerted force. The pastor could not believe it. "What do you mean by that?" he asked. Rachel explained that she had tracked every movement of Cheyenne and arrived at the scene, but he was already gone. Moreover, many adult men were injured at the scene, and it would have been impossible for Cheyenne to cause these casualties because of the three absolute principles. The pastor thought to himself, "This doesn't make sense. It has never happened in the history of the Dead Mansion that someone could go against the three absolute principles." Pastor added, "If Cheyenne indeed broke these absolute principles, then something might have gone wrong, and they might even aim for the Dead Mansion later." The pastor decided to change the objective. He ordered Rachel to investigate Cheyenne first, observe him closely, and find out if he had really used force without permission. The sexy nun stood above the corpses. The pastor also told her that if she needed any support in Korea, she could ask the White Tiger workforce for that. There were two men from the White Tiger workforce nearby. She approached them while speaking on the phone. She told the pastor that she had found the smoker in the barcode cap and would start observing him after she left the scene. Seeing the sexy, hot clothes of the nun, a man with glasses, smoking a cigarette, remarked, "Kids these days don't have enough sense for clothes." The bald, ugly man next to him added crudely, "She's Russian, and they are open-minded." Rachel was in the same school where Cheyenne was studying. She had already finished her preliminary investigation on him. He had attended a middle school, and his parents were listed as being abroad, but they were actually unidentified, fake parents. "Cheyenne, what are you doing here?" I will dig it all up, Rachel thought. The sexy nun had disguised herself as a teacher in the school. She wanted to see how Cheyenne had grown up because he was the best among all the children she had taught, wielding every weapon she taught him perfectly. She entered the classroom and saw Cheyenne bluffing with another person. They were discussing something, and he was putting on a pretense in front of them. Rachel thought, that vulgar child is really Cheyenne. Cheyenne was bluffing a lot, which annoyed the boy behind him who wanted to sleep. Could you just let me sleep, you fucker? The boy muttered. What did you say, you bitch? Cheyenne replied. Rachel was watching closely from outside the classroom window as they were having a skirmish. She recalled similar times at the Dead Mansion, where fights determined a hierarchy of strength. It was adorable how they used to tire themselves out by fighting her, and Cheyenne would always come out the strongest. But now, Cheyenne was being beaten by the fatty, masculine boy. Rachel could not understand how the strongest could be defeated like this. Cheyenne was continuously pleading for forgiveness, and Rachel was disappointed. So, you're pretending students in the classroom, she thought. She could understand that because of the school environment, Cheyenne couldn't carelessly show his strength if he was trying to hide his identity. She even thought that this meant he had still not broken the 3 principles, so she must observe him longer. She was looking towards Cheyenne, who was writing very seriously on a piece of paper. She could see that his eyes were faded, but his gaze was focused. She remembered the time at the Dead Mansion. Those good children were not only strong, but also very intelligent, and Cheyenne was always the most outstanding student among them. He may hide his power, but he can't hide his brilliance, she thought. She moved toward Cheyenne, wanting to peek at what he was writing on the paper. When Rachel peeked at Cheyenne's paper, he was just doodling a rough picture. She, barefoot and disappointed, hit him. What are you doing in my class? She shouted. Then, the scene shifts to Rachel sitting in a bathroom stall, frustrated. She couldn't believe that Cheyenne had become such a foolish child. She muttered to herself, the marks on his face are the same. His face definitely matches, but I can't sense a single strand of elegance in him. She considered the possibility that it could have been a coincidence. There is no way such a messy kid is Cheyenne, she thought. Change of plans, she decided. This is no longer a matter of protecting the 3 absolute principles. I must first find out if he really is codenamed Cheyenne. She disguised herself as a student, a haughty one. She continued following Cheyenne down a road, thinking he might be returning to his house. Cheyenne was grumbling to himself that teachers shouldn't beat students so hard, but his teacher had hit him really hard. Rachel, walking just beside him, was listening. She was thinking that if this child wasn't Cheyenne, then he would die by her hand. Cheyenne, where are you going, dear? It was Hyung-ho's mom. We meet again. You've come at just the right time. She was carrying 2 bags full of groceries and asked if he could help her carry them. Cheyenne listened and obeyed, treating it as a command, as he considered Hyung-ho's mother his own. She thanked him and even asked if he would like to eat some food at a nearby restaurant. He thanked her for the food as well. Rachel was watching closely, still disguised, and followed them into the restaurant. At the restaurant, Cheyenne was eating hurriedly. Eat slowly, Hyung-ho's mother told him, and he obeyed. Rachel, still observing, was also watching Hyung-ho's mother. She remembered the rumors that Cheyenne was the one who had put Hyung-ho into a coma, and she wondered what his relationship with Hyung-ho's mother was. She thought to herself, he's grown up to be so vulgar. If he's not Cheyenne, how could he look so vulgar while having the same face as him? Rachel took a taste of the food, but it was too spicy for her. She couldn't handle it and began to choke. Water! Give me water, she shouted. Hyung-ho's mother, noticing her discomfort, handed her a glass. Here, drink this. You can't handle spice very well. Huh, she said with a kind smile. Rachel thought this much spice is like torture. How could people eat this stuff? She mused in her mind, these crazy Koreans, this should be considered poison, or maybe even an assassination tactic. She glanced at Cheyenne, who was mockingly looking at her. He said with a grin, you should have eaten it slowly. You're really clumsy, aren't you? Rachel's anger flared up. Does he really want to get beaten up? She thought. She recalled the times in the Dead Mansion when Cheyenne couldn't handle spicy food and how she used to hold his hand tightly back then. She was thinking he must be having a rough time if he's still in Korea. She noticed him gripping his hand tightly, trying to suppress the discomfort. Hyung-ho's mother asked, "Is it good?" Cheyenne replied, "It's very delicious." Rachel knew he was holding back how awful it felt. She thought, "Why are you eating so forcefully? Everything is served to you." She remembered something and noticed that Cheyenne was following every order from this woman, Hyung-ho's mother. Even when he hadn't volunteered himself, he carried the groceries for her, and he ate as if it were a command. She recalled the words, "Thank you, Cheyenne. And while you're there, eat some food, okay?" Rachel realized he listens to everything this woman says, following her commands without hesitation. She thought back to the incident with the guards and realized that maybe he was also following a command then. She also considered the possibility that someone had ordered him to destroy the bingo construction. The only person who could have done this might be this woman. She thought about the dead mansion's first principle. The parents' words are absolute. That's it. She recognized that Cheyenne sees this woman as a parent and follows her orders. Under that assumption, everything fits perfectly. As Hyung-ho's mother was paying the change, Rachel, ready to test her theory, tried to strike her with a chopstick. She threw the chopstick toward her, but Cheyenne quickly caught it with a fork. He moved swiftly toward Rachel, grabbing her and pulling her out of the restaurant in a sudden rush. "The dead mansion's third principle for the good children," Rachel spouted, recalling the rules aloud. "If there is a threat to your parents' safety, ignore the principles and resolve the situation." Cheyenne looked at her coldly. "Cut it out. Are you planning to follow me around all day, Rachel?" He had recognized Rachel in disguise and knew she had been tailing him. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" Rachel said, her voice laced with a mix of nostalgia and seriousness. Rachel thought to herself, "It's strange. Why is he following that old woman from the snack shop like she's his guardian?" She spoke her thoughts aloud, but Cheyenne didn't care about what she was saying. Deep in thought, he knew he had caused quite a commotion, but he didn't expect to be found so quickly. Rachel made a move. She caught up to Cheyenne and slammed him to the ground. Feeling the pressure, Cheyenne rolled off, standing back up. Rachel said, "Sean, let's go back. There are many clients waiting for you." At her words, Cheyenne's mind flashed with an unclear memory from before. A memory he couldn't fully grasp or explain. Confused, he muttered, "What was that memory? What did you say I am, Sean?" Without waiting for a response, he headbutted Rachel in the face. She staggered back, realizing he wasn't going to come quietly. He bolted from the scene, running away. He couldn't believe this was Rachel, the Rachel he knew, and he strained to recall who she was in his distant memories. The next scene cut to the church, where the pastor was furious. "You lost him? What do you mean by that?" he yelled. Rachel apologized. "I'm sorry. I let my guard down for a moment, but I discovered something. The old woman seems to be controlling him with the three principles." "Controlling him?" the pastor exclaimed, his eyes narrowing. Rachel, beginning to remove her coat, inadvertently revealed her toned, alluring figure beneath. "From what I've observed," she continued, "Cheyenne seems to consider that woman his parent. He's following her commands as if they were from his own parent." "Is that even possible?" the pastor asked incredulously. "Does it look like that old woman is intentionally using the third principle?" Rachel replied, "I need more information and confirmation about that." The pastor then instructed her, "Simply take that woman first." The scene shifted to where the old woman stepped out of her door. She noticed someone outside who had entered as a young woman, but now appeared fully grown and mature. The pastor then explained, "There are two ways to retrieve a good child from their parents. The first is to simply ask the parent to let the child go." The scene then moved to the Manhwa snack shop. The same woman from earlier, now in her more mature form, was speaking to Hyung-ho's mother, saying, "You need to stay away from Cheyenne. I am his mother, and due to my frequent business trips, I couldn't give him much attention. But he shouldn't be with you." She continued, "Cheyenne couldn't even handle spicy food, yet he's been eating such strong flavors recently. It's heartbreaking to me." Hyung-ho's mother was confused and couldn't comprehend what the woman was saying. She hadn't even known Cheyenne couldn't handle spicy food. Rachel, observing from a distance, understood the pastor's words. The first way to retrieve a good child from their parents is to make them willingly give up the child. The old woman from before told Hyung-ho's mother, "If Cheyenne ever shows up here again, Tell him to never come back and to go back to his home. Say it with confidence." She was about to leave, but Hyung-ho's mother replied firmly, "I won't do that." The old woman looked surprised. "You said you're often away on business trips, right? Have you properly looked at your son's face? At his clothes? Do you even know what kind of school life he's having?" The old woman had no answer, her expression shifting with uncertainty. Hyung-ho's mother continued, "He always wears messy clothes and has a dirty face. When I asked him about it, he always says he fell somewhere. I truly believed him. I thought he was just a boy who grew up like all the others, but he kept saying he falls down as well. I can't let Cheyenne live like that. So, without realizing it, I started looking after him whenever I could. Right now, Cheyenne needs a parent to watch over him." She raised her voice, almost shouting at the old woman, "I can't let him end up like my Hyung-ho. If you're too busy, I'll watch over him myself." The old woman's face twisted with anger as she snapped back. "Who do you think you are saying you'll watch over him?" Hyung-ho's mother remained calm. "I'm sorry, but I can't comply with your earlier request." The old woman clenched her fists, trembling with rage. The next scene shifted to the vicinity of a hospital, where a woman, dressed seductively, was on a phone call. It was Rachel, speaking to the pastor. "That old woman was more stubborn than I expected," she reported. "She insists on keeping her hold over him." The pastor, wearing his usual robe, responded on the call, "This situation can't be handled quietly anymore. Proceed with the second method." Rachel acknowledged, "All right." She adjusted her disguise and smirked. "The second way to retrieve a good child from their parents, in the event the parent refuses, is to eliminate them." Rachel, dressed provocatively, seemed more determined than ever. She had her targets set, the old woman. "I will get rid of her," she whispered to herself, a dangerous glint in her eyes. The scene shifted to Hyung-ho's mother, who was purchasing groceries at a bustling mall. Unbeknownst to her, Rachel was stalking her from a distance, her eyes cold and calculating. In her hand was a small button-aid detonator for a bomb that had been discreetly planted in the mall earlier. Rachel's resentment simmered as she thought of how Hyung-ho's mother had taken authority over Cheyenne. She pressed the trigger. A thunderous explosion rocked the mall. Panic erupted among the shoppers, and Hyung-ho's mother froze in fear, her eyes wide with terror. Amidst the chaos, Rachel pulling out a sleek, black gun. She aimed directly at Hyung-ho's mother, her expression deadly serious. She fired. But suddenly, Cheyenne appeared from the side, wielding a frying pan like he was playing a round of PUBG. The bullet deflected off the pan with a loud clang, saving Hyung-ho's mother in the nick of time. Cheyenne's eyes blazed with fury. "Have you really gone this far, Rachel? Bombs and guns, all for this?" Rachel's lips curled into a sneer. "Stay out of this, Cheyenne. I'm going to free you from her control." Before she could escape, Cheyenne lunged at her, driving her back into a food shelf, sending cans and bottles tumbling to the floor. He launched a swift kick, striking Rachel's hand. She dropped the gun, which skidded away. "The third principle," Cheyenne reminded her sternly, his stance unyielding. Rachel's face contorted with anger. She pulled out a knife, her movements sharp and precise. She slashed toward him, but her blade only pierced a ketchup bottle, causing red liquid to spill onto the floor like a pool of blood. Cheyenne sidestepped, readying another kick. Rachel smirked. "Do you really think you can take me down?" She moved with incredible speed, tripping Cheyenne by hooking her leg around his. He fell to the ground with a grunt. She stood over him, her eyes cold. "Is this all you've got? After everything I taught you?" Meanwhile, Hyung-ho's mother couldn't explain anything going in the mall chaos. She spotted a small child huddled in a corner, tears streaming down his face. He was crying, calling for his mother. Her heart softened, and she moved toward him. "Are you hurt?" she asked gently, crouching down to his level. The boy looked up, his face streaked with tears. I can't find my mom," he whimpered. Something about his eyes seemed familiar, cold, calculating. He looked like one of the assassin kids from Dead Mansion. He seemed vulnerable, but as Hyung-ho's mother reached out to help him, he quickly pulled a knife, his eyes narrowing with deadly intent. The scene unfolds into a fierce battle between Cheyenne and Rachel, each matching the other blow for blow in a deadly dance. The tension is thick in the air as Cheyenne struggles against Rachel, his body moving with calculated precision, but his face reveals the strain of the fight. Rachel's dagger flashes in the dim light, slashing across Cheyenne's cheek and leaving a thin, stinging cut. He staggers back, realizing the gravity of his situation. Fighting Rachel barehanded is almost a death sentence. Desperate, he grabs 2 cans of food, hurling them towards her with all his might. Rachel, swift and agile, easily strikes them aside with her dagger, her eyes cold and focused. "As long as your commanding mother is dead," she taunts, "you're nothing but a tool waiting to be dragged back to the dead mansion." Her words are sharp, cutting deeper than her blade ever could. "You're a valuable product of the mansion, after all." Cheyenne's eyes narrow, his anger simmering beneath the surface. The word product echoes in his mind, igniting a fierce determination. Rachel smirks, continuing, "Let's end this and return to the dead mansion. There's no other choice for you." But Cheyenne isn't ready to surrender. In a quick, unexpected move, he grabs a packet of flour and flings it toward her. Rachel reacts instinctively, slicing the packet open, but the flour bursts out in a thick cloud, filling the room with a blinding haze. In that moment of confusion, Cheyenne seizes the opportunity. He lunges forward with a pair of scissors, launching a surprise attack aimed at turning the tide of this desperate battle. Rachel easily dodged Cheyenne's attack, moving with fluid precision. Cheyenne quickly threw another strike, but it barely grazed her cheek, leaving a small cut. "Is that all you've got?" she sneered, her voice filled with contempt. Their weapons clashed again, the sound echoing in the enclosed space, but Cheyenne stood his ground, not backing down an inch. "Am I just a product to you?" Cheyenne demanded, his voice tight with anger. In a swift move, he grabbed Rachel and shoved her into a nearby shopping cart. "You speak of the dead mansion like it's a place where family waits," he continued, pushing the cart forward. "But all you see me as is a product, not family. Who calls a family member a product?" Rachel's eyes narrowed as she tried to escape, but Cheyenne held her down, his grip firm. "You're more of a product than I ever was, Rachel," he said coldly. He locked the shopping cart, leaving her trapped, and stepped away. Rachel shouted after him, "Cheyenne, don't you dare walk away." Her voice was strained with frustration, but he ignored her and kept moving. Meanwhile, in another part of the scene, a young boy, wearing a suit, tried to sneak up on Hyung-ho's mother with a knife. She was distracted, looking in another direction, when the boy made his move. Just as he was about to strike, Cheyenne appeared, running towards them with urgency. Hyung-ho's mother turned and saw Cheyenne, her face a mixture of relief and fear. The boy hesitated, recognizing Cheyenne. He knew all too well that dealing with Cheyenne, the so-called legend of the dead mansion, would be a far greater challenge than he was prepared for. The boy decided not to attack, lowering his knife. Cheyenne stepped in front of Hyung-ho's mother, standing protectively. "You lost your nerve," he said, his voice calm but commanding. The boy muttered to himself, "If Rachel was defeated, then is this really Cheyenne?" Hyung-ho's mother spoke softly to Cheyenne. "This boy, he's lost his mother. We should get him out of here." Cheyenne looked at the boy and asked, "Do you have any family left?" The boy shook his head, his expression hollow. "No, I don't." The boy thought to himself that taking on Cheyenne was too much of a risk. He shifted his focus back to his target, Hyung-ho's mother, and moved towards her, feigning vulnerability. "Please," he pleaded, "help me find my mom." He hoped to exploit her compassion, aiming to get close enough for another strike. But Cheyenne stepped in front of the boy, stopping him. "Come on, kid," Cheyenne said, his tone surprisingly gentle. "There's no need for tears." He effortlessly picked up the boy, lifting him away from his intended target, his grip unyielding but not unkind. Cheyenne glared at the boy, his expression fierce. "Didn't anyone teach you that kids who look too innocent are always the first to be suspected?" He made a finger gun and aimed it at the boy's head. The kid's eyes widened, thinking it was a real weapon. "Stay still," Cheyenne warned, his voice low and commanding. "I need to have a conversation with the director." "You still have a direct line, right?" The boy hesitated, gripping his knife tighter. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, trying to hide his fear. Cheyenne, with a swift movement, struck the boy's neck, disarming him. The knife fell to the ground with a clang. Kyung-ho's mother, worried, asked, "Did he hurt you?" Cheyenne shook his head. "No, it's nothing. He's just tired," he replied calmly. "He's fallen asleep." Kyung-ho's mother looked at the unconscious boy and murmured, "I wonder what his mother is doing now." Cheyenne searched the boy's pockets and found a phone. "I'll try calling someone," he said, dialing a number. Late at night, at the dead mansion in Russia, a muscular man with tattoos covering his body was roused from his sleep by the ringing of his phone. Annoyed, he grumbled, "Who's calling at this hour? I told them not to use the direct line unless it's urgent." He picked up the phone, his voice rough. "Hello, Director," came a familiar voice from the other end. The man's demeanor shifted instantly. He recognized that voice. It was Cheyenne. "Why are you calling from this number?" the Director demanded. Cheyenne replied, "It seems you've sent some rather weak operatives after me. Did you think you could catch me with just Rachel and a kid?" The Director chuckled, trying to mask his nervousness. "So, they both failed, did they?" "Yes," Cheyenne answered. "What's with that reaction? Don't insult me by underestimating me. I'm a legend of the dead mansion. After all, did you really think I would be defeated so easily?" The Director hesitated but then replied, "I thought you might have just run away. But are you planning on fighting the dead mansion head-on? That's a bold move." Cheyenne's voice was steady and resolute. "If there's a threat to my parents' safety, the principles dictate I must ignore any other rules to resolve the situation. You know that, don't you, Director?" The Director's expression changed. He leaned down on one knee, smiling slightly, a look of admiration in his eyes. "Oh, my lord! To see you so faithful to the third principle is more beautiful than anything I've ever witnessed." "Very well, Cheyenne. Let's do this your way. If you come back, we won't harm the old woman." Cheyenne replied, "Give me an hour. Tell Rachel to calm down." The Director nodded, pleased with the negotiation. "Soon, we will be reunited," he thought to himself. Meanwhile, the boy began to wake up. Cheyenne looked at him and said, "Don't bother looking for your knife. I took it long ago. Just sit quietly." The boy scowled. "Who do you think you are?" Cheyenne smirked. "You're at an age where you should know better than to mess with someone like me." They walked outside together, and the boy mumbled, "That wasn't so bad," trying to act tough. Cheyenne laughed. "Don't pretend you didn't enjoy the meal. You ate a lot." As they approached, Rachel watched them, her expression sharp and unreadable. She called out, "UCI, come here." The boy, UCI, quickly obeyed and went over to Rachel. Cheyenne handed her some items. "These seem to be what the kid likes," he said. Rachel looked at him with a cold smile. "You're still a traitor, Cheyenne. I haven't given up on you yet. I'll be back to visit soon." As they prepared to leave, Rachel turned to UCI and said, "Things would have been much simpler if you just dealt with the old woman." UCI lowered his head, ashamed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Rachel's voice was harsh. "You've proven yourself useless. You should have been disposed of long ago." UCI trembled with fear, stammering, I didn't mean to." Cheyenne walked back towards them, his tone unexpectedly calm. "Hey kid, I'll ask you one last time. Didn't it really taste good?" UCI, his eyes filled with tears, replied, It was good. Really good. Kyung-ho's place is really nice." Cheyenne smiled gently. "Then if you want to go back, let's head to the snack shop. You're still under the ownership of the dead mansion, but that doesn't mean you have to forget the kindness you experienced here." As they moved away, Cheyenne's gaze turned to the horizon. This fight with the dead mansion, it's far from over. The scene shifts to a grim memory of Eugene being purchased by a wealthy, unattractive woman. Her face was stern, and her voice cold as she declared, "From today, I will be your mother." Eugene looked around at the unfamiliar faces, realizing this was supposed to be his new family. But soon after, tragedy struck. The woman died. In the dead mansion, it was known that if a child's parents died repeatedly, the child would be returned to the mansion to be readopted. This was Eugene's fate. His parents had died numerous times, and each time, he was sent back to the dead mansion to be sold again. The memory shifts to a grassy field, where Eugene walked alongside the pastor. The pastor spoke in a low, condescending tone. This is the fourth time your parents have been found dead, Eugene. 4 times. He sighed heavily, adding, we could continue profiting by sending you to new families, but you failed to protect your parents 4 times already. This is the worst disgrace in the history of the Dead Mansion. If this continues, we'll have no choice but to dispose of you. Eugene felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew what the pastor meant by dispose. They were walking in a graveyard, a grassland filled with the graves of children who had been deemed useless by the Dead Mansion. The pastor's tone became more threatening. You know what happens to the children here, don't you? You've seen it. They're buried here. Children who failed to prove their worth. The pastor continued, we want you to be useful, Eugene. So, we're giving you one last opportunity to prove yourself. Go to Korea, help Rachel, and bring back Cheyenne. If you don't want to end up in one of these graves, you must show us your value. Eugene remembered this vividly. Even now, the words echoed in his mind as he stood before Rachel. She looked at him with disdain. You're to be disposed of now, Eugene, she sneered. You should have gotten rid of the old woman when you had the chance. Eugene's mind raced with desperation. If I am truly useless, I can't let this happen. He thought of the graveyard and knew he had to prove his worth. Give me one more chance, he pleaded, his voice filled with urgency. Rachel's eyes narrowed with a sharp glare. Another chance? She mocked. You think you deserve that. Eugene swallowed hard. I'm sorry, he muttered. Just then, Cheyenne appeared before them. One last time, Eugene, Cheyenne said calmly. Was the food really that bad? Rachel interrupted. I'll give you one last chance, she said, her tone icy. Kill Cheyenne's parents, the old woman. Do this, and you might still have a place here. Eugene's heart pounded in his chest. He knew this was his final test. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he nodded. It was delicious, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'll do it. I'll kill Cheyenne's parents. Determined, Eugene turned to Rachel. I will take back what's mine. I won't be useless anymore. Rachel knew Cheyenne still considered her a threat, which meant the third principle would apply. She taunted. Didn't we agree to a deal, Cheyenne? You were supposed to hand Eugene over to us, and we wouldn't go after that old woman. Cheyenne replied calmly. Yes, but the kid just declared he would stay. He's been with us for some time now, so I can't help it. Rachel's expression darkened. So, this is how you're going to behave, she said, her voice tinged with irritation. She turned to Eugene and ordered, Go ahead. This is your last challenge. And as for the deal, it's off. I'll go after that old woman myself, if you don't cooperate. Do you understand what I'm saying, Cheyenne? Cheyenne smirked slightly, unperturbed by her threat. Do as you please. I'll just mess you up over and over again. Eugene's face was a mask of determination. Cheyenne and Eugene were in a small, dimly lit room when Hyung's mother walked in. Why are you both here? She asked, puzzled. Cheyenne turned to her with a casual grin. Didn't you ask me to take care of the kid for the day? He replied. Still, coming to your house might be a bit much, he added. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, it's fine. Do you think you two can cook properly by yourselves? I won't be a bother. Besides, it's quite fascinating to think that this boy's mother might have known your mother as well. Cheyenne's expression faltered for a moment as he processed what she was saying. He thought to himself, could the old woman be connected to Rachel somehow? It seemed too coincidental. He glanced at Eugene, who looked equally perplexed. Hyung's mother added cheerfully, Well, you might as well stay over there. No one is at home anyway. Cheyenne hesitated. No, really, it's not necessary. The kid bowed slightly. Thank you, ma'am. And please excuse us. He was thinking to himself, I can't miss this opportunity. She asked, What is your name, kid? Eugene replied, It's Eugene. But in his mind, he was overwhelmed. This is too much. It's the first time I've been inside a home like this. He had never been in a normal, warm house, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of longing. As they waited, Eugene pointed towards another room and asked, Is that Hyung's room over there? She looked puzzled. Is something wrong? Why do you ask? Can I go and see? He asked cautiously. She nodded, and Eugene walked towards the inner room. It was just an ordinary room, the kind you might see in a drama or a movie. Simple, yet filled with everyday dreams and hopes of a normal family. Eugene's eyes lingered on a photo of Hyung's mother and Hyung himself. His heart ached with a sense of longing. Maybe because I've wanted this so badly for so long, he thought. But I don't get it. He stared at the photo and thought about the ordinary, normal life he had never experienced. I wonder if I could have been happy just like this, spending normal, peaceful times. His thoughts were interrupted when he remembered the conversation. If I hadn't been assisting them, what could have been different? He wondered. Later, at the dinner table, Eugene said quietly, "Thank you for the meal, Andy. It was really delicious." Hyung's mother smiled warmly. "I'm glad you liked it." But Eugene's mind was racing. He wanted to know more. "Do you have anyone besides your son in the family? Like a husband?" Her face softened with a sad smile. "Hyung's father. He passed away a long time ago. Unfortunately, we had to let him go. The heavens needed him more, so he became a family member up there." Eugene felt a pang in his heart. "Yes, that's a lovely way to put it," he murmured, trying to suppress his own emotions. Then he added, "On the other hand, your son, he couldn't become a part of any family." Hyung's mother looked puzzled, unable to understand where this conversation was going. Eugene continued with a somber tone, "Because a weak, useless child like me can't become part of any family either." He looked down, feeling the weight of his words.